guys, I hope you're doing well. If you don't know, my name's Brittany and I film videos based around the paranormal and mythological beings. So if that's something that you think might interest you, quickly go ahead and click that subscribe button and we're gonna dive right into the topic today. So today I'm going to read another creepy story. I found this on Reddit and I obviously cannot vouch for if it's true or not just because I don't know the person, but I have not read this story yet. I quickly skimmed the beginning and I wanted to make sure that I didn't read the story. That way we could read it together. Now, the title of this story is, I remember the imaginary friends I had when I was younger. They want to be friends with me again. Now, personally, I had an imaginary friend growing up, and I do talk a little bit about her in my paranormal life video, but I haven't seen her since I was little. So this one definitely caught my eye. So I'm going to read it right off my phone. And it goes, I don't really know many people with imaginary friends, or at least are willing to admit that they had them. First of all, nothing wrong with imaginary friends, you guys. It's especially hard to find out the embarrassing imaginations we had when we were 8 or 9, when you're now in high school. Rumors spread fast these days, and I would know as I'm mainly the center of attention of them. I was a very creative kid when I was younger. I still consider myself fairly imaginative, even now, but it feels like I'm on a whole different planet with puberty and all. My creativity was also a little morphed from the shows my mother watched when I was younger. We shared the same room back then, and my bed was close enough to the TV, so when I was supposed to go to bed, I would secretly watch and listen to all the paranormal shows she had on. She loved that stuff back then, and even now. She loves to watch things like the Ghost Files or the Ghost Adventures, which I loved back when I was a younger kid. Of course, it was only a matter of time before I believed in the paranormal myself. Ghosts, ghouls, demons, the devil. Despite not really being in a religious household, I believed in anything unnatural or scary, as I didn't have nightmares of the stuff I watched. There was nothing really there to scare me away from wanting to see more, other than the rule that I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies. That's understandable, of course, as what I wanted to explain was when I was around at least maybe 10 or 11. I remember the first time I encountered these supposedly imaginary friends. Nobody was around to watch me play with my toys on the dining room table. Does anybody remember those bobblehead Littlest Pet Shop toys? I do. I love them. I had one of those. I still remember that it was a dog with tan fur and purple paws. I don't think I have it anymore, but it was a weird toy for sure. I was playing with some other toys as well, but I don't as clearly remember those as I do with the dog. I think I left for a moment to get a juice packet. Honestly, I don't remember, other than that I left for a moment. When I came back, the bobblehead on the dog was shaking like crazy. You could just chop it up to just being the air or something, as the air conditioner was on and it was summer, but it was just violent shaking. Not enough to make the body move or anything, but it was just shaking. Of course I was fascinated with it. One of my toys was just suddenly moving its head all around. I probably was getting bored anyway, so of course I would find something like this entertaining. An explanation for myself? Well, it had to have been a ghost, right? It was the only explanation my child mind could have come up with at the time, with all the paranormal shows my mom watched and all. So I began to ask it questions like, are you a ghost? Or, can you talk to me? I never got a response. I never told my mom about it, nor did I tell my grandparents, which we were living with at the time. We still are. Despite my mother loving the paranormal, my grandparents never felt comfortable with any thought of a ghost, or worse, living in the same home. They made it sound like we were going to move away if they did find out that there were ghosts in our midst. I didn't want that to happen, so I just kept my mouth shut. This is only the beginning of my imaginary friend's antics. I began to hear somebody knocking on the walls when I was alone, somewhere in the house, as if somebody was merely trying to communicate with me. When I knew that nobody would hear me, I would ask the questions once more. Maybe a knocking was meant to be a response or a yes, while nothing was meant to be no. That's the best my mind at the time could come up with. I don't remember any of the questions I asked or any of the so-called responses I got, unfortunately, but I do remember one. There are 2 bathrooms in the downstairs of the house. At the time, the upstairs was owned by my great-grandmother, so I never really went up there. On one of the times I wanted to communicate with my invisible friend, I remember asking, "What is your name?" or something along those lines. There was no response. Later that day, I went to use one of the bathrooms and saw that in the corner of the mirror, plain to see, was the letters J-A-C. That was the answer to me. My friend's name was Jack. This is one of the 3 times he would communicate to me via mirrors. So mirrors, you guys, are meant to be portals. So that makes sense that they are communicating with mirrors. Anyways, let's continue. So it says, the second time is when, while in the bathroom, I asked how old he was. I think I got the response the next day, as in the other bathroom in the same corner as the last mirror. There were 2, what I assumed were 1s. So Jack was 11. At least around or about my age. Of course, this got me excited. I had a friend who was the same age I was and was a ghost. Who wouldn't want that? The third time, looking back at it now, I should have seen at least the first sign that something wasn't right. I was usually asking many questions or talking to the knocking spirit when I was alone, and I knew that nobody would hear me speak. The 2 other messages, the 11 and the name Jack, were still on their corresponding mirror. My family didn't seem to notice these messages, as they stayed up before fading away, naturally, as if they didn't see them. Going to the bathroom where the name was, I saw that something was added around, and on the name, they looked like they were mushrooms, and I am still convinced that they are. What disturbs me the most is that I never asked what his favorite food was. And that is what I assumed he was telling me back then. So seeing this with better logic, it was like he was doing things more on his own and less as a response to me. Young and naive, I began to tell people at school that I had made friends with a ghost. Word traveled fast, and sooner or later I ended up being the one who had an imaginary friend named Jack, a name that wasn't even spelled properly. As I said, I was 10 or 11 at the time, so I never really thought of why people teased me for being friends with a ghost. They were probably just jealous. Remember when I said that I never really lived in a religious household? A lot of people in the school I went to sort of did. This wasn't a Catholic school or anything, it was public, but there really isn't escaping the most popular religion in America. One of my friends, we'll call her Natalie, is one of them. I say friends very loosely, as after she caught word of me being supposedly friends with the paranormal, she refused to talk to me again. Her mother was a priest working at a church in another town. We didn't have a Catholic school around for miles, so her mother had put Natalie in the closest public school. In our last conversation we had with each other, it was when I kept asking her why she didn't want to be friends with me anymore and why she wouldn't talk to me. She told me that she had told her mother that I spoke to an imaginary friend and that simply by that, her mother had sensed that I was friends with 3 demons of hell and that she should stay clear from me. That's the last time I ever talked to her. Back then, I didn't understand why that would drag her away from me. I was more or less happy that she had said 3 and not 1. That meant that I could have more friends that were ghosts. Who cared that they were demons? Not all demons are bad, right? Right? The knocking seemed to spike after that. I could hear it come from other rooms and around other people. I could feel drafts of cold air go past me suddenly when I was alone at home. I was fully convinced that these were coming from my friends. It was no longer just Jack. I had given the other 2 names, Joey and Jones. God, I was so naive back then. Even after everything that happened, I still thought if I only knew what was really going on. The next time I heard from one of my imaginary friends, it wasn't through the usual knocking that nobody could hear or messages in the mirror corner. Looking back at it now, it sends shivers up my spine. I was getting changed in my bedroom. It was just another normal day. I'm pretty sure it had been a year since I had met Jack. So I was probably 11 or 12. I was alone, but I wasn't startled when I heard a voice. A female voice. I remember clear as day what she said. Listen to him. I wasn't scared or surprised or nervous. It just felt like I was talking to a normal person, a friend. I asked, "Listen to who?" The voice responded, "Jack." The female voice didn't respond to any more questions, and the room felt cold. Of course, I continued to tell people that had talked to the ghosts who were my friends. That only got me teased and bullied more, as I was said to be the loser who still had imaginary friends. Honestly, a part of me did believe that these were imaginary, but the evidence was there. The voice, the shaking bobblehead, the knocking, the messages. I still couldn't understand why people would call that imaginary. Were they just blind? Was I that untrustworthy? And then, well, I did some pretty twisted and some would say demonic things during that time. When I was truly alone, I would speak to my so-called imaginary friends and eventually began to pray to what I called the guardian of purgatory. A being who decides where people go when they died, and the devil himself. Offering deals of my own sanity in hopes that I can stay friends with what I still saw as nice demons, and that things will get better with my own life. I gained nothing, but I certainly did lose something, especially when I promised my friends that I will forever talk to them. I shouldn't have made that promise. I started to communicate to them less and less as time went on until I eventually stopped talking to them and stopped acknowledging the knocking. When I turned 13, my supposed imaginary friend phase was finally over. Eventually, the knocking stopped. There was no more attempted praying to the devil or talking to imaginary friends. Even so, the damage to my reputation had already been dealt. Nobody really wants to talk to the person who has imaginary friends for about 2 or 3 years, way past from the usual age when most toddlers or young kids would get them. The town we lived in also tried their best to estrange themselves from meeting me or my mom, all because of the reputation of me being a Satanist, or possessed or insane. It had gotten so bad that for a few months my family began going to church. The priest there didn't do anything to me, and I didn't really pay attention to any of the sermons or the prayers. When I was finally in high school, it seemed like everything was finally over, despite me not having any more friends. Honestly, looking back at it now, I couldn't have been more wrong. We've gotten a cat last year. Sheena was her name. We'd adopted her from one of the shelters a few times over. Healthy, neutered, friendly. Nothing wrong with her whatsoever. She died a couple of days later due to a sudden illness. Vets couldn't explain the sudden illness. She was put down while I was at school, and I didn't ask what the illness was. There was a lot of crying that day, but that's also the day I heard the knocking again. It wasn't the rapping on the walls like it was those years ago. It was a sharp and sudden, like somebody had knocked on one of the tables as if somebody had lightly hit it with their knuckles. It gave me an eerie feeling that Jack and his friends were back, and they weren't as nice as I remembered. I began to feel as if somebody was trying to strangle me at night when I'm in bed. The feeling wasn't suffocating, but I could feel the pressure of 2 warm hands trying to press down on my neck in a malicious manner. Sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I can feel parts of my bed sink down slightly as if somebody was sitting down on it and watching me sleep. I hate that feeling when you feel like somebody is watching you sleep. Or just watching you, just a very spine-chilling feeling. The worst part is that I didn't feel any fear when any of this happened, just like when I was younger. I started trying to communicate with the devil again, exchanging more of my sanity for pure luck in my life. So, real quick, never do that. Every time I do so, I feel like I'm being watched or observed, even if nobody is around. I can't seem to stop myself. It's like it was my only choice, my only option. I'm going to be a sophomore now, and the only reason I'm trying to get my story out somewhere was because of what I remembered happening a few months ago before quarantine. I was having a sleepover with an old friend. We're not friends anymore. And we were going to sleep on mattresses in my living room. She left to use the bathroom, leaving me all alone. I didn't think much of it until I heard that sharp knock again coming from the kitchen. Right above the doorway of the kitchen was a shadow of what looked to what I think was a hooded figure. It stood still, and it looked like it was staring straight at me. I didn't feel fear. I wasn't scared of it. nor did I want to call out to my friend to get somebody else to see whatever it was or whoever it was. Only now do I realize who it was and how much danger I might be in. I just stared at it in awe. It felt so familiar. It didn't move for a moment. Before I saw it rock side to side. At first it was slow, almost entrancing. But then it sped up. It went faster and faster until it looked almost violent. As it seemed to convulse side to side almost rhythmically, its arms slowly began to raise up. And though the action looked benevolent, I could tell the malicious intent behind it. My stare was cut off from it when my friend entered the living room, talking to me. When I looked back at it, the shadow was gone. I tried to tell my friend what I had seen, but she didn't believe me. A week or two after that, she got up into the popular kids and never talked to me again. I don't know how long it took me to realize how stupid I was. I know who that was. I know what that was. Though it looked like death, I can associate the name now. He's Jack. It has to be Jack. There's no other explanation. Despite nobody believing me, I know that it was Jack and he wants me dead. I can feel him staring at me while I'm typing this. The pressure on my neck is almost overwhelming. Even now, I don't know why I don't feel fear. It's like if your friends come over and you have no idea their true malevolent goals, but the anxiety of something still happening is still there as you know that they are waiting for the exact moment of something to happen. And I think it's going to happen once the knocking stops. So that's the end of that story, you guys. Pretty crazy. You don't ever want to mess with really dark things intentionally. Like, I mean, you don't want to mess with them at all, but, I mean, there is a lot of times where something may trick you into thinking that it's benevolent and wants to be your friend and it wants to help you, but it's really not, and it's just waiting for that exact moment. But personally, I think she should have never gotten involved with the devil and should have never thought like, oh, well, these are nice demons, because there's no such thing as nice demons. I think that she should have told somebody. So if you are experiencing anything paranormal, definitely reach out to somebody. If you don't have anybody to reach out to, you can absolutely reach out to me, especially because dark beings are not something that you want to invite in, that you want to really converse with. It's funny because it kind of seems like she was seeing a shadow person, which if you guys haven't seen my experience with shadow people or the shadow person video that I did, make sure to go check those out because they will explain everything a whole lot further than I'm going to dive into with them. But there are some people that believe that shadow people are demons and they're very dark entities. And some people believe that only some of them are. But this definitely seemed like it was much more demonic since it's, has a malicious intent. And it does make sense why she doesn't feel afraid if she's been, conversing with the devil and trying to talk to the devil. Because it seems like she's used to that dark energy, which is never good. Again, no, not all spirits are dark and evil and demonic. There are a ton of benevolent spirits around, but you do want to just be careful. If something is very demonic and negative, try to keep that white light around you. Try to think positive thoughts and have a positive energy, because that can often protect you. So I want to know what you guys think of the story. And all the ways to contact me will be right down below. If you liked this video, please give a big thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It would mean so much to me, guys. And I hope that you have a great day, afternoon, night, whenever you are viewing this. And I will see you guys next time.